is your name, please?
My name is Bob McGrath.
My name is Bob McGrath. My name is Bob McGrath.
Sesame Street's Bob McGrath, today on Pop Goes the Culture. So Henson died very, very young.
Very young. It's just tragic. They were doing a lot of promotion for a new Joe Raposo special, I think, and I was at CBS doing.
Joe Raposo, the composer from
right, and I was at CBS managing to do all across the country promoting that, and we had a couple of them done when the control room they hooked up when Jim Henson died. I thought impossible, so they stopped long enough, and I said, "This can't be, you know, just saw him not too long ago, perfectly healthy." And when they convinced me that it was true, I was wiped out. They said, "Can you continue?" I said, "No, no way." So that was shocking. But I think what I wanted to tell you how great Jim was. He and Kenny Asher and Paul Williams, wrote all the music for the Muppet Show film. Mm-hmm. Great song, "Moving Right Along" and "Rainbow Connection." Mm-hmm. And this was a story I heard that was kind of showed how terrific Jim was and how he worked with people. And so at the first big meeting they had, it was in a big conference room with all the writers and everything, and the grand piano there, and Kenny and Paul Williams could not wait to start playing the music, which Jim had never heard, this composer. And they finished their meeting, and then they said, "Well, would you like to hear the music now, Jim?" He said, "No." He said, "No?" He said, "No, it's all right." He said, and Jim had a lot of his own money on that particular production movie. And he said, "What if you don't like it?" He said, "Well, we can always fix it up as we go along." So we're talking about this after his memorial mass on the way over to a reception, and we were discussing. It was the first time I heard this story, and they said we were stunned because we just wanted to get down and play all this great music. And so they said we went home and we went over every note to see, is there anything we can possibly do better to make this better? Because he had that kind of confidence in them. But it turned out to be, incredibly great music. I mean, "Rainbow Connection" is just a classic song, as well as all that other music. So
stood the test of time.
Yeah, and that was kind of Jim. When he chose to work with somebody based on their skills and their talent, that was it. They could do anything they wanted to do, and without any critiquing. So it was, we'll figure it out.
It's amazing.
A wonderful, wonderful man. Paul came back they did a wonderful big tribute to Jim about 4, 5, 6 years ago at Carnegie Hall, and sold out like in 10 minutes. Saturday morning, 2 full concerts, and Paul Williams came out, and we had the two, Statler and Waldorf, up in the balcony in Carnegie Hall, spotlighted, and they started curmudgeoning about, let's get out of here and go downtown and see a really good show, all that kind of stuff. And we had the whole New York Pops Orchestra and the whole cast, and it was the first time that the Henson Muppets from the Muppet Show and Sesame Street Muppets ever got together. And it was wonderful meeting all those great guys for the first time that we never had a chance to.
That's interesting, because you never think about the only one who crossed over was Kermit.
Yeah, absolutely, because he had a life prior to Sesame Street, and so we had him, but then he went.
He moved on. Yeah,
moved on to the Disney, and I'm glad to see they're starting to really use them more in films and.
Yeah,
they're seeing them more.
I love that first Muppet movie, that new one that came out. I thought that was really well done.
The very first one?
Yeah.
That was good. They did a second one, which was a little edgier.
I heard it didn't get quite the same reaction.
It was different. I guess not. But they was a little less purified, Disneyfied than the first. But I guess the first, but, it was all great to have her.
Well, I think they were really smart. I think what they did with that first movie, which is to sort of acknowledge the passage of time,
right,
and say, yes, it's been years, because a lot of kids probably had no idea who these
No.
Muppets were,
No.
and all of a sudden, so we got on their side because they had, it was like rooting for the underdog to come back.
So it exposed them to a lot more kids, which is wonderful. That Muppet Show is my all-time favorite show to watch.
Really, not Sesame Street?
Oh no, they were so totally different, but it was so adult and sophisticated, but childlike in a way where the whole family could watch.
Yeah.
It was kind of like the Mitch Miller Show. We didn't have a comedy involved. Well, we did. We did a lot of crazy skits and so forth, but it was good family entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And some of that stuff holds up, and some of it, it's really like a real time capsule of that period. If you look at the guests who were on there, the Julie Andrews, the Elton Johns, the people who,
it's kind of like a picked up, Sullivan Show.
Yeah, really, but with extra stuff. Yeah. It's good. I'd like to see more Muppet stuff out there, but it's not quite the same without Jim, I think.
No, definitely not. I mean, I can't think of his name right now. He does a very good Kermit, but the chemistry between Jim and Frank is difficult.
Undeniable.
That can't be replicated very much.
Yeah, Bert and Ernie and those whole sort of the back and forth.
Even though the people that have come in and taken them are just absolutely brilliant, and they come very, very close. But the chemistry between those two was, Abbott and Costello was,
And yet they let you in.
I know, isn't that amazing?
You got to come in and
with
work
no talent whatsoever.
Oh, stop!
You
were you, and they were puppets, and
Speaking of you, so I came home to my wife and I said, I got the job, but who am I supposed to be now? I can't just go in there and be Bob and get paid for being myself. So through the whole first year, I didn't know that I was going to be a music teacher, and that gave me a little bit of a foothold. But I didn't have an apartment to live in. I didn't have a store like Mr. Hooper. I didn't have a fix-it shop and later on with Marie and Louise. And I said, who am I supposed to be? And I asked that several times during the first year. I still thought a little untethered. And they said, we'll work it out. And the second year I said, I'm still not exactly sure, huh? They said, just continue doing what you're doing. We just want you to be yourself. And it turned out we had a number of very well-known actors and actresses come on to do little skits here and there. And many of them, I found out later, did not test out all that well because they were fantastic actors and actresses, but the kids recognized when someone was being honest in themselves. And this went for Gordon and Susan and Mr. Hooper was a little bit of a different because he had an incredible, great career in the Jewish theater and got blacklisted and everything else, right?
Well, that's why he was working in the store.
That's right. And I had really minimal acting, but we were all kind of just being ourselves. Will Lee Hooper developed a really nice character for himself, a little bit more on the rougher side than he might have been in real life. But kids understood someone that was not just pretending and acting as opposed to dealing with them.
And you always look like you're having a good time, like you're happy to be there.
Never a moment that we were not happy to be there.
What are you doing these days? Let's talk about what you're doing these days.
Not a whole hell of a lot.
Okay. You're taking things a little easier now?
A little bit easier, yeah. For a lot of reasons. It's sort of time to start thinking. I want to continue working with my recordings.
Right, you're almost 65 now, almost time to retire.
Almost 65, time to retire. But I never did go for that. I've got eight or nine recordings out on my record company, and they still sell decently well, although CDs are not selling as well as they used to. But through the Orchard and Amazon, we're getting a lot of downloads, that kind of thing. So I want to continue that. I want to punch up my teacher page on my website, which is just bobmcgrath.com, and put more things in there that teachers can have access to. Because I did a lot of early childhood teacher conferences, web for workshops and keynotes. And I'd like to be accessible where they can download them onto a whiteboard through their computer and make them relevant in the class for pre-K, first, maybe second grade, because that worked out really well when I was doing live performances with them, their keynotes. So I want to work more in that area. The All the original cast, with the exception of Alan Muraoka and Chris on the show, have been gently released as of this year with the HBO thing. And we put together a program called The Humans of Sesame Street. We did an incredibly successful one-time concert at the Museum of Moving Images that went superbly well, better than we could have hoped for. So we're hoping to maybe make that possible. We're doing a few other special places around the country.
Is that with Sesame Street's blessing? Is that you just sort of doing it on your own?
Interestingly enough, yes, with their blessing, because prior to this year, it was very difficult to do anything that might have been a hint as a Sesame Street produced show. But they were very kind. We don't know if it's going to work the same if we want to do it a little more. This was maybe kind of a one-time shot, but we think we've got the blessing to use clips from the show. We had a moderator who was fantastic, sort of like the show we talked about, what's it called, the one in Bravo.
Inside
Actors
Well,
Studio.
I kind of think of this as a poor man's inside the actor's studio.
No, I think it's a very rich man.
I don't know. I have a smaller beard,
Yeah,
and
you have to be a little more somber. You can't laugh. You got to be very serious.
Then you went. Next was Mitch Miller.
Yeah. So anyway, we did that with their blessing, with wonderful clips from the show. Each one of our own lives. We had 6 chairs lined up. And people, it's a smaller place, only hold a couple hundred, but it sold out overnight.
People sing? Did you do some singing?
We didn't sing during the show because it was all talk and interview, but we closed with sing a song. And of course we invited them all to sing on the second chorus, and everybody sang out. And then we went out for a meet and greet, and that took another hour and a half, so it turned into a much longer event than we planned. But it was wonderful. So there's that. I've got some product out. I've got 2 books out. One called All Gotta Go, Potty Tales from Toddlers. And we did that many years ago, and it still sells incredibly well because there's always that need.
Potty books are perennials.
Yeah, thank you very much. So that's still there. I have nothing to promote any of that stuff, but it's nice to have a little trickle coming in now and there, here and there. And did another one called Oh Gotta Go. I'm sorry, it was called Oops, Excuse Me Please, and Other Mannerly Tales. That does less well because I guess manners are less important than learning to be potty trained. And I've been asked for the last 10 years, when are you going to write your story, your memoirs, whatever.
Just transcribe this interview.
And I've been threatening to do that for a long time. I think if the dust settles on a lot of other stuff, I really would like to start that, because when I get down talking, like this, I find it interesting to recall these kinds of, I can't do it hardly by myself.
It's easier with someone asking questions.
It really is.
I only asked you one question. You went on for half an hour.
I know,
so it seems to be pretty...
My wife says, please, let him have a moment. It's the curse of the Irish. My father could sit down next to a big rock and have a conversation.
Did you ever kiss the blarney?
Oh, God, yes. Me? Yes. We went to Ireland for 2 months on our honeymoon, actually.
Wow, 2 months.
Yeah.
That's a luxury.
I was out of work in between jobs.
Okay, not such a luxury. You figure,
and
we can't get back.
My wife was teaching, and so we went over, and we were going to bike around, but the weather was so-so. So she had enough to buy a brand new Volkswagen for a couple $1,000. We used that for 7-8 weeks, came back and sold it for half as much again as we had paid for it because they were very scarce. But we had an incredible time over there. It's a blessed country to go to. You never get a straight answer from anybody.
Oh, that's hilarious.
My full name is Robert Emmett, which is a famous Irish patriot who was hung by the neck in O'Donnell Square. He got caught by the South Irish coming back from the north. And when we went into Northern Ireland, the far west coast, there was a guy there checking passports from the north. And he opened my passport and he said, Robert Emmett. He said, Jesus, it caused us a hell of a problem before. He said, I don't know if I want to go ahead.
Once again, the downside of naming your kid Robert Emmett.
You're right, but he let us go.
That's great. What have we missed? I know you've got these terrific CDs that you mentioned to me before. Yeah. It's very rare that we have CDs. I'll show it to this camera.
Well, they're less popular now. Thank goodness for downloading. But teachers still like, this is 4 of, I think we have 8 or 9
Yeah,
there.
wow.
I gave it easier, just bring 3 or 4.
They make nice Christmas presents.
They do.
Great for Passover.
Yes, great for Passover. I should have done one for Passover. In the days,
now my mother's going to replay that over and over.
So anyway, the last one we did was a compilation of 2 I'd done many years ago with about 25 or 30 short songs, all like a minute and a half, 2 minutes long. And at these teacher conferences, they would say, you know, thank you, Bob, we love your voice, but we'd love to have some of your songs without your voice. Took me a moment to figure that out. And I got home and I thought, what's that all about? So I started listening to some of the tracks from fantastic musicians up in Toronto, all studio musicians. And I collected 15 of them and picked the best of the 2 albums and did it with both my voice and then the tracks, so they had their choice. And teachers love them because they can now download 30 minutes worth of tracks that, you know, cost a whole lot of money to make with top musicians. And they're great in the car, people tell me, because you can skip over my voice and parents can sing along all the songs just with them and their children in the car. My wife and I do it driving to Maine, actually. We skip Maine and sing live. And that one, fortunately, we were really quite thrilled, excuse me. That won the top Parent Choice Award, which they only give once a year, which is the Classic Award. When I got that award, I thought, oh, we didn't get the gold or silver. And someone said, no, that's above silver and gold. That's the only one a year they give that. So that's done well.
That's amazing. So people can order these from you?
Not from me. You can get them.
Where do you go?
On not PBS. No, they can go. Many stores still have them, but fewer and fewer people are carrying them. Excuse me. But they can go to Amazon, and they can get them either as a download per single song or the whole album. And the whole album, I think, you know, someplace they sell for $12, $13, $14. I think it's $9.99 at Amazon, or single track for 99 cents. So that's not a bad deal. And they can pick them on. Some of them are just become really classics. And I think the thing that's been thrilling, that for me, it's always been the creative process is almost more exciting than the actual doing of it. And having like the top musicians in this country and in Canada, like on the last album, not this one here, but in one prior to that, it was all original material. And we had like people like Nils Lofgren on guitar from the Bruce Springsteen band, Dick Hyman on piano, he was our pianist with Mitch Miller, Will Lee on bass from the Letterman Show, Chris Bodie on trumpet, who's now become a major star. And to be in the studio working with guys of that caliber, between the engineer running it and them saying 3 words about a correction, they got it, and they're dead center all the time. It's a great language between a really bright musician who I have tremendous respect for. And I always felt that kids deserve to hear the best musicians that you can afford to buy, and they're not cheap. They're double scale for the most part. But I thought those are the ones that are going to last, because I understand if you're doing albums with a limited budget to either go to synthesize things, or if you're live musicians, a solo, duet, trio, that's great. But I don't want to have them ever not understand the difference between a live violin and a synthesized. I just think it's something they should hear, which is why I love doing my symphony concerts, and especially we did also a whole classical, introducing kids to symphonic music. We toured that with Jersey Symphony and New Orleans and places, and they are hearing, 60, 70, 80 piece orchestra playing beautiful music live, going out with a whole different concept. My favorite one, I think, we did the Ode to Joy. We did have the teachers teach them that prior to coming to the concert all over Jersey, and then we toured it with the Jersey Symphony. So when we did it, I said, now we're going to do a piece, and I had them learn individual parts and so forth that they had been taught. And finally, I said, okay, now this is the performance. You're the professional choir. We're up here. And so now we're going to do it. They all stand up. I said, and this is the performance. And it was glorious to hear 2,500 kids down in, the concert halls around the state singing Ode to Joy with the full orchestra. And we got letters back from teachers saying on the buses way back home, they might have come an hour or 2 hours, they were all singing Ode to Joy on the way back to the schools. And I thought, that's going to stick in their memory for a long, long time.
Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Remember Mitch Miller?
Yeah.
Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing.
So, music is an incredibly, incredibly important part of everyone's life. And unfortunately, it's one of the first things to go with the budget cuts, because they say, would you rather have them learn how to sing Do, Re, Mi, or be taught if they have a disability? You can't argue with that sort of thing, or this or that. But
it's not either or, though.
It should not be an either or.
Do, Re, Mi teaches 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
I mean, they're completely entwined.
And I think of that. I worked with an incredible young orchestra out of a major conference in Chicago that happens every year for musicians. And this orchestra from Texas came up. They had a large high school. They had 3 100-piece symphony orchestras in that one high school.
Wow.
And they brought the top one up, and I did 2 or 3 songs with them, Rainbow Connection, some other things. And then they played a chunk from The Planets for the narration, and they sounded like the bloody New York Philharmonic. And I'm sitting there watching this, I think she was a sophomore or freshman, lead violin, and she's sawing away and reading notes. She's watching the conductor, tempos, 18 things going through her brain at once. I thought, wow, that's a lot of left to right brain stuff happening. And this is why kids do much, much, much better in life and everything if they're involved in music.
Think about how many millions of kids you have had impact on with your...
You should say we. I'm one cog in a very large cog of wheel. But
yes,
okay.
all of you. Well,
you.
when I say you, could be all of you. But
all of us, right.
But I mean, honestly, all these things that you recognized early on.
Right.
The first day you heard that stuff, you saw it. But I bet you never realized the impact you would have ultimately. I mean, you were sitting there in a studio listening, watching a couple of animations, and then here you are 45 years later.
Yep. I can't imagine what could be more thrilling, quite frankly. I thought of a couple of times to have come from a one-room schoolhouse, going there in a horse and buggy with my brother, to being in the largest schoolhouse in the world. I mean, interesting transition that I never ever could have anticipated, and just kind of dropped into it, quite frankly. I mean, I did prepare certain things, but there is, even though my Juilliard guy said luck has very little to do with it, there is a certain degree of luck with a lot of preparation.
Right place, right time, right guy.
Yeah, but the impact it's had, there's hundreds of these stories. One which I remember frequently is many years ago, I was flying out of Newark, and I was walking to get my plane, and I heard this voice, female voice, say, "Yo, Bob!" So I turned around and walked over to American Airlines. I was flying another airline, and I walked over to this very attractive, good-looking African-American lady behind the counter, and I went over and we talked, and she started telling me all about the show and everything. And so I sort of freshly said, "So I suppose Sesame Street changed your whole life, right?" And she said, "Oh yeah, it did." And she went on to tell me she grew up in one of the worst possible situations in Newark. And none of her brothers and sisters had ever finished high school. She said, "I was watching at 4 or 5, and I thought, I don't care what it takes. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to live in a neighborhood like that someday." And so she said, I finished high school. I went to college. I got a scholarship to college. I think she went to Rutgers, if I'm not mistaken. And now she had like a very, very high position with American Airlines. So she said, yeah, you guys did. You changed her life. And that's just one of many I've heard. And for everyone you hear, there's 10,000 others out there. So
just thought of a question I wanted to ask you. Did you ever see Avenue Q?
Oh, I went with one of the 2 writers together. He was a Michigan grad also, so he invited me to go. It was funny. So my wife and I went. We're sitting there, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I loved it. But every time there was anything maybe a little bit edgy, he was kind of starting to look at me like this, like, how is he going to take this, you know? Whether it's, you know, the what was the table joke. And I was having a great time, and he said, after, what'd you think? I said, I thought it was funny. So he kind of heaved a sigh of relief. The conductor was also a Michigan grad, which was kind of fun. But I thought it was wonderful, wonderful, you know. 1 night stand, 2 night stand, 3 night stand, you know. It's a great, great show. But, you know, I've been very fortunate. I didn't really, I had 2 very, very close African-American friends in high school, but in my little country hometown, there were not a lot of African-Americans. Their mother and my mom were in a card club together, so we did have some, but limited amount of that. So Sesame Street, I mean, I freelanced with people when I was working, but to have the kind of close association we had for Sesame Street with Gordon and Susan, Retta, and Matt Robinson was quite unique for me. And I learned a lot about life and getting along with people and appreciating those who were. Then came along Sonny Manzano and Emilio Delgado, and I learned all about, you know, Latinos, which I had a few friends, but nothing like that now. And they are now very, very close friends. And Sonia's got her great book out of Being Maria, a great book. She's all over the country now touring that book.
That's amazing. I can't wait to read the rest of it in your memoirs.
Think I should do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you got a story or two. I'll let you have a I'll let you have a copy of this tape, and you can get it.
That would be nice.
Get it started.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff here that I will totally forget that I've talked about by the time I get home today.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you. It's really been a privilege talking
Likewise.
to you, and I had so much fun.
I did too. Thank you so much.
You.
Have a great day.
Thank you.